I am now, thank you.
Nick, it's like this is your and my first meeting that we've ever done. So, okay. Next item on the agenda is item 3, approval of the minutes from October 18th. Shouldn't there be one more?
Yes, there should be, and we have an audio problem with the September meeting, and I'm working with Matt to resolve that issue. We think we can recover it.
Okay, all right, sorry about that. So
No, thank you.
Approval of the minutes from October.
Motion to approve.
There a second?
I've got a point of contention on it, just a brief housekeeping thing. I did attend that meeting and I'm listed as an absentee person on the 18th. Don't know how much that has to do with anything, but
I did not attend, so I think we switched places.
So Phil, you weren't there?
I was not, no.
Yeah, I showed up a little bit late, but I did attend.
So let's just do a correction to that. And if you want to move to approve the minutes as corrected, that would be great. And then Josie will correct them.
Motion to approve the minutes as correct.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, minutes were approved. So next item on the agenda under the business items is A, we have a public hearing for McCormick Urban Village Sub Area Plan.
So Chairwoman Stewart, I think that I'd like to give a brief overview of this item and then we can open it up for public testimony if that's all right.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. We did provide in the packet an updated graphic for the conceptual layout of the McCormick Urban Village area. We had indicated in the previous meeting that we had a black and white graphic that was that showed what you're about to see, and then we had a color graphic that was older, and so we finally got that updated, but not in time to include it in the draft sub-area plan document. So the plan that is currently on the screen, we have just incorporated that into the sub-area plan, and we are going to put an updated November 2nd version of the sub-area plan and overlay district on our website in the coming days. Our website administrator has been out of the office for the last 2 days, and so we've been unable to get it online. The hearing tonight, we are asking that it be opened and then continued. We'll take testimony tonight, but allow that to be continued to our December meeting so that the public has ample opportunity to review the final draft documents and provide comment either in writing or at tonight's meeting or at our December Planning Commission meeting. And then it is our hope that the sub-area plan and the overlay district can be a recommendation can be made by the Planning Commission so that can move on to the City Council. So as I mentioned, the black and white drawing that you saw last week is really this pretty much identical to what you see here. It has just been colored in and rendered with trees and colors for asphalt and buildings, etc. With that, we did give a pretty thorough presentation on the sub-area plan last night. We did have some question and answer from the public. And so tonight we are asking that we open a public hearing and take official testimony on the record about the proposed sub-area plan. And then, like I said, we will continue that hearing to our next meeting so that there is a couple of weeks here where people can take their time to go through the final documents, which will be on the website this week. So Ms. Stewart, if you wouldn't mind opening the hearing, and if anyone wants to testify, if they could please raise their hand and we will allow you to provide testimony. And you're muted.
This time I'll open the public hearing for the McCormick Urban Village Sub-Area Plan. Is there any comments?
I don't have any attendees raising their hand at this time.
Okay, so
There's
then
one.
oh.
Here we have two. So I'm going to allow Eric Campbell to speak first, and then somebody named Carlos has also raised their hand, so they will follow. Eric, you should be able to speak at this time.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. So, but somehow my screen is blank. So I'm sorry about that, Nick. So somehow I turned off my video. I can't get it turned back on. So I was really just want to let you know I'm here. I'm listening. I'm observing. And I thought, I can chime in if there's any questions that you would that need to be answered from our perspective. But right now, I'm just here to be a willing and active listener. So I'll hold in for the comments.
So can I ask Eric, do you live in McCormick Woods, or what is your
No, I'm the
role?
developer. I'm with McCormick. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Excuse me.
okay.
I should have made that obvious.
That's okay. Thank you so much.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to unmute Carlos now. Carlos, you should be free to speak.
Guys, Carlos, I'm a resident here in McCormick Woods, and I'm newer to the community, so I do have not necessarily comments, but I do have questions. Is this the right place to ask those questions?
Well, if through your testimony, you're really providing testimony about the proposed plan. If you want to use this time to ask questions, I can try to answer those after we close the public hearing or once we move out of the public hearing portion of the agenda. But this isn't really a back and forth. It's about providing your testimony.
Got it. In that case, I'll wait for the Q&A session. From a lot of other neighbors that I speak with, not a lot of people know what's going on with this village plan and when it's going to start. So I really have no comment if that's the case. But I do have questions that I can wait and for the Q&A session.
So there isn't going to be a Q&A session. If you want to pose some questions now, I can try to speak to those later and give you a response.
When is this intended to be completed? And when it comes to investment and part of this retail center, who is the group to speak with?
Yeah.
Sure, those are my two main questions at this point.
Okay, I will try to quickly answer those. My understanding is that the developer intends to break ground on this project in 2022. I don't know what the construction window looks like. It's probably a 2 or 3 year process to build this out, and maybe longer to find all of the commercial tenants. In terms of the outreach, at the presentation that I gave at the last meeting, we started this outreach back in the spring, and we did a community survey that had really high response rates, and conducted several meetings through the HOA, and provided presentations both to the community and to the Planning Commission on this topic. So it's been talked about for a while, and the plan actually goes back all the way to 2003, when this was still in Kitsap County, outside of the city limits, and before we annexed it. They had identified this as a commercial village center, and they had it in their plan as such, but it really wasn't very detailed. So that's the short answer to your question, I think.
Right, so is the retail space going to be available for sale?
I assume it will be for lease, but I really can't tell you. Eric, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, Nick. It's going to be available for lease. When we hope to, if all things go well with all the permitting approval process, that we will be breaking ground, hopefully this summer on the project. It may be, given all the other constraints we currently have with lead times, it might be as late as fall.
All right, and I've had 2 other hands go up. It looks like Kelly and Wayne Wright. I'm going to, let's see here. I'm having technical difficulties. I believe that you've been requested to unmute yourself.
Yes, I have.
Okay, there you go.
Great. This is Kelly Wright. I do want to get some of the questions that Wayne and I had last time on the record in the public testimony. So 2 areas of concern with this development is transit access. Kitsap Transit currently stops at the Juvenile Detention Center on Old Clifton. So I would like to strongly encourage, as part of the approval process, that transit get provided further along Old Clifton out to this urban village as it gets built. The second area of infrastructure that I would like to make sure gets entered into the record is the impact on our existing South Kitsap school system. Feel very strongly that the number of homes that are coming in associated with as part of this village proposal, our current South Kitsap school system cannot support, and I want that in the testimony because it's a major issue we've got currently with the capacity of our schools. Third item that I know Wayne, if he was here, would bring up is the continued protection of wetlands and the mitigation as the construction occurs. I noticed on that updated plan that you showed that the steep hill on the the north side of the roundabout is shown with trees, and then the apartments are beyond those trees. So ensuring that a significant buffer is maintained. During the windstorm last Monday, the parcel A plot, currently known as Amherst, had some trees come down. Fortunately, one did not hit the golf shop shed, very close to almost taking out a new construction home. The other one did take out a power line at Old Clifton. So the buffers need to be maintained so that the weak trees are not the only ones left. Otherwise, we will continue to have power outages associated with a minimal 25 to 40 foot buffer. So thanks for putting this into the testimony of this public hearing.
Okay, you're welcome. I have a Greg, no last name listed. I'm going to unmute you now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Hey, my name is I'm Greg Gilliland. I'm from McCormick Meadows, actually. So I just wanted to make sure that there's the walkability from going to and from across Old Clifton. I want to make sure that's factored in, and I don't know, it's probably considered. I just want to make sure that's factored in. And I like the bus route thing. That's want to make sure the bus routes. That's a good point. I like that. That's all I wanted to say. The walkability across the Old Clifton, make sure it's safe and conducive for pedestrians.
All right, thank you. And I believe that is everybody. There's still hands up, but they're from people who have already provided testimony. So please lower your hand if you no longer wish to provide testimony.
Greg, could you please spell your last name so that we can enter that correctly in the record?
Yeah, my name, it's Gililland.
Thank you.
Well,
There's nobody else wants to speak, Nick?
Yeah, so I think we should just leave the hearing open and we will continue it to the next meeting.
One more person raised their hand.
Oh, you're right. L. Braun, I'm going to unmute you. Okay, you should be unmuted.
Yes, this is Linda Brune, and I'm a resident of McCormick Woods. I agree with about the transportation and also providing adequate educational system for the additional homes that are coming in. I was not at the last meeting. However, I've gone through the documents that have been sent out. I have yet to see any plans about the issue of all the clearing that is going on and the displacement of wildlife that we're finding more and more deer particularly and other animals in our housing areas. And it's getting to be quite untenable. So my question is, has that been addressed?
So I think the important thing is you're noting your concern about animal displacement on the record. I've got a list of questions I'll try to speak to here once we move out of the public hearing process.
Thank you.
Is that it, Nick? Or Carrie?
That is, so if you would like, I don't know if any of the planning commissioners have questions or anything that they'd like to discuss before we move on, or if you'd like me to address the 4 or so concerns that were mentioned here.
Do you want me to close the hearing first?
Yeah, go ahead and close the hearing for now, and then we can reopen it at the December meeting.
Okay. So at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing for McCormick Urban Village Sub-Area Plan.
All right, I'll speak briefly. The concerns that I heard: transit, schools, trees, and wildlife displacement. First of all, transit is included in the plan. There are several goals, and specifically goal MVT 5 and policy MVT 10 that support the establishment of transit service in the sub area and require the installation of transit pads during permitting and construction in consultation with Kitsap Transit. So Transit has already commented to the city and said, even as part of the existing phase of development, they've requested that there be a site available for transit stops. I don't believe that they will start serving this area until this is developed, but it is their long-term strategy to provide service in this area. So I think the plan has covered that in the goals and policies, and that's sort of in the works already. As I mentioned at the last meeting, the school district owns the property immediately to the west of Feigley Road, across the street from the McCormick Village area. They have concept plans for a new school, 2 new schools at that site. And ultimately, that is something that has to be acted on by the school board and not the city. And so the city certainly supports the school's efforts to provide adequate capacity for students. We do that in a couple of ways. We have school impact fees that we charge new development towards the construction of new school capacity. And we're also currently working on an interlocal agreement for how to better manage that school impact fee program for the city. And so that's really the extent of what role the city has to play in school creation or expansion. And certainly when ballot measures go forward or the school needs other assistance, we are their partner. In terms of trees, again, we spoke at the last meeting. We are looking to preserve trees where it is possible. And as we all know, when you have windstorms and you have development activity, sometimes the weaker trees that were previously on the inside of a forest are not as resilient to wind. One of the things that we're doing in this plan is we're really focusing on long-term tree canopy creation. And so we are trying to make sure that we achieve tree canopy within a reasonable amount of time from the time of development to a period in the future to make sure that we're striving for, I believe it's a 30% tree canopy threshold. We do want to preserve tree buffers where it's possible, but we've got to look at the health of the trees and the stability of the soils when doing so. And so that's, these are urban, this is urban land. It's not, once it's in a city, the Growth Management Act specifies pretty clearly that urban land is for development at urban densities. The we obviously have critical area protections for wetlands and the stream that flows north out of this area, and also the stream that's in McCormick Village Park. But long-term, our goal is to establish a robust, well-treed landscape as part of the development of this property, and certainly not to preserve anything that might be a risk to life or property. Finally, the wildlife displacement. I mean, this is a similar issue to the tree issue. I mean, these are urban lands, and we have a park system, we have green belts, we have, you know, critical area protections, but urban land is meant under the Growth Management Act to be for urban development. And so, you know, there's not a whole lot of tools, and I'm not familiar with any other city that has a wildlife displacement program in place for, you know, either relocating animals. It's just something that sort of happens on its own, and there's probably, you know, there's going to be some lag between when development activity occurs and when the natural systems sort of stabilize, but it's not something that I'm aware of that a tool exists to actually address displacement within urban areas. And so I don't have any recommendation on how to address that particular issue. And I think that was the extent of the comments that we received and the questions that were posed in the public testimony section. Planning commissioners, any questions from you?
Greg has raised his hand again. Mr. Gilliland.
Yeah, it's a Gilliland, but
Gilliland.
yeah.
So the public hearing is closed now, so that whatever, I mean, if you just have a question, it's not on the record at this point.
No, it's just a clarification. I raised the issue of pedestrian traffic crossing to and fro from across Old Clifton, and you addressed public transportation, but I just want to make sure it's safe to traverse Old Clifton. I wonder if that's factored in.
Yeah, sorry, I meant to answer that one as well. Yes, so the roundabout that's gone in at Campus Parkway already includes pedestrian crossings so that people will be able to walk from Feigly Road through the village to Campus Parkway, and then we'll be able to get across and along Old Clifton Road, connecting over to McCormick Woods and the Ridge development in the park. There is also intersection improvements planned by the city at Feigly Road and Old Clifton, which will also provide access into the McCormick West once they move into the further western areas of that development. And so, yes, there will be pedestrian connection across Old Clifton in at least 4 points in the corridor, all the way from Anderson Hill out to Feigly Road. And then there will be the ability to traverse Old Clifton Road from Campus Parkway to McCormick Woods Drive over to Anderson Hill Road. And we don't intend to put pedestrian improvements between Feigly Road and Campus Parkway. And the reason is that it's a little bit of a canyon there where the banks are pretty steep on both sides, and we prefer to route bicyclists and pedestrians, except for the most advanced bicyclists. We want those folks going through McCormick Village rather than along Old Clifton Road, where you have higher vehicle speeds and less of an area for refuge. All right, Chair Stewart, if there's nothing else, I think you can move on to the next item unless any of the planning commissioners have any final thoughts or questions.
Is are the crossings on the prints here? Is it something that you can see?
Well, yeah, the primary crossing is at the roundabout here. There are 4 ways, crosswalks going to center median type islands. And so those are already, that concrete has already been poured. Those are in existence now as the roundabout's being wrapped up.
Okay.
There's already a paved pathway along Filey Road that goes out to McCormick Meadows and ties into Road 1 here has been called Yarrow Court, I believe is the name of that road. And so the new sidewalks along Road 1 have partially been constructed, and the rest of them further east are under construction. And so that connection is almost complete to the point that you'll be able to walk into McCormick West from McCormick Meadows continuously. And then the city, we've actually, we've advertised for a consultant to help us design the non-motorized improvements along Old Clifton. They'll be on the north side of Old Clifton between this roundabout and McCormick Woods Drive. So we're working on that design, and that's in the budget for the city next year. So our hope is that we design the project and then we can apply for some grant funding and get the $1 million or so that's needed to build out that pedestrian connection.
Thanks, Nick.
Is there any other questions? I think it's interesting to listen to this conversation over the past few months, because I have been here since before McCormick Woods was even out there. And it seems like it was the same concerns even then, you know, before any of the houses were there or the golf course. And it was like, talked about the trees and talked about the animals, and it just reoccurs. Not good or bad, but it's just interesting how it just continues along the same way.
And Eric Campbell has raised his hand again. Do you mind if I unmute him? And
No, it's fine.
Eric, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, Nick, you did a great job explaining. The only comment I was going to make on the roundabout, not only did we provide crosswalks, but we also actually provided pedestrian lighting, you know, the flashing warning signs, knowing that it was the first roundabout coming from let's say the first western roundabout entering Port Orchard. So we took pedestrian safety, you know, very seriously and added one more element to try and provide a safer crossing.
Thank you.
Is that it? So let's move on to business item B, the public hearing. It's an update to the POMC chapter 20.170, the flood damage prevention code.
Thank you. Now that we've done a number of major updates to Title 20 and also to the Shoreline Master Program this year, we've started working on a number of related codes that have to do with development approvals and protection of property, including the city's flood damage prevention code. It hasn't been updated in several years, and it's now inconsistent with certain state and federal requirements. And it also has some inconsistencies with these more recently updated sections of Title 20 and the SMP. So we've recently been working with the city attorney and with the Department of Ecology's floodplain code advisor, and they work closely with FEMA as well, to revise this section of the city code, to resolve these outstanding issues, to bring them into consistency with state and federal requirements, and to also strengthen it so that it's a little bit more protective in terms of floodplain management and to prevent flood damage and to provide a stronger process for development permitting and for variances, things which our code did not really adequately address previously. One of the key changes that's proposed in the ordinance is the adoption of updated flood insurance rate maps. These are called firm maps. The most recently adopted ones are from 2017. We've been referencing the older 2010 maps in our code, which now are badly outdated. And so now we're consistent, or we will be consistent with updated FEMA flood map references, and also with the city's recently adopted SMP recommendations, which, if you'll recall, we had a large section in there now which deals with elevation of new development as protection against shoreline flooding and sea level rise. And so we are asking that you hold the public hearing, take public testimony, and review these proposed revisions and recommend approval of these as presented. They have been, as I said, prepared by the Department of Ecology with oversight by FEMA. And so we feel that these should be adopted as presented without change. Otherwise, we will be going back to the state for further revisions. I'm happy to answer any questions about the specific changes that we're proposing.
And because this is Carrie's second to last presentation with the city, I ask you to please recommend this tonight so that Carrie can take it to the city council next week and we can get one more thing checked off before she's no longer here to help me. So thank you, Carrie.
I thought you were going to say something like, please ask her horrible, hard questions, make her life miserable since it's her last meeting. But you can, that's fine, go ahead. Annette, you're muted if you're speaking.
Thank you, Carrie. So at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing for the updates to POMC Chapter 20.170, the Flood Damage Prevention Code.
If anyone wishes to provide testimony, you need to raise your hand here. I am not seeing any hands going up. Last call. All right, I think you can close the hearing, Annette.
Okay, so at this time, I'd like to close the public hearing for the updates to the POMC Chapter 20.170 Flood Damage Prevention Code. Do you guys have any questions or comments?
Carrie, I've got just a couple. This is basically just a rewrite from what I'm understanding, correct? Bringing the language a little more current.
Yes, it's not a complete rewrite, but there are significant changes here, which have been provided by Ecology to make sure that we are following the most current state requirements, the most current FEMA guidance, and that we have internal consistency with the remainder of Title 20. Yes.
Okay, so has our floodline properties, have those increased any since the previous version of this? Has the size of the floodplain increased? Properties affected?
I'm not aware that we have any significant changes on our firm maps. Actually, I think there were a couple of properties along the shoreline that were taken out that were actually in error. So there were a couple that were removed. If I recall this, I'm just remembering from doing the shoreline, the SMP update. But Nick can correct me if there's something he knows I don't, but I don't believe we had any significant changes in the mapping.
Yeah, I'll say that for riparian flood hazards, Blackjack Creek has the primary flood threats, and there isn't a lot of development, and the maps did not change significantly in terms of the streams that flood. For coastal flooding, I think there's some minor changes, but if you're at sea level, and you've had flooding issues in the past, I think most people are not surprised to learn that they are in a flood hazard area. So I think that most of the changes have been coastal. As Carrie mentioned, a few of them did actually come off of the map because they were mapped in error. But I think other than very subtle differences related to better elevation data, I don't think there's significant changes. It's just a few more squiggles in the boundary, and most of the exact same properties are affected. I don't think there's anything radical.
All right, thank you.
And what we are recommending is increased elevation for shorelines, simply for consistency with the SMP, to go with the best available data and recommendations, and also because, as we found out, federal grants are requiring this, that you have to have at least 2 feet of elevation for the coastal flooding hazard area. And so we want to make sure that we retain our ability to obtain grants in those areas for things like extensions of the city boardwalk and other development of that nature. So, we're trying to plan for the future here as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Mr. Trineri, to add to your question. I don't think the maps have changed, but how you actually construct new structures within the floodplain, it is an additional height that you're building above the base flood elevation. So how you design your building and what's required of you is a little bit more comprehensive now.
Yeah, I noticed that in the new rewrite. I was just more concerned about the property itself and property owners potentially involved. But thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Carrie? All right. Do you want us to make a recommendation? Is that what
Yeah,
you're
so
after?
there's a suggested motion in the staff report if one of the commissioners would like to make a motion.
I'll move to recommend that the City Council approve the proposed revisions to POMC 20.170, the Flood Damage Prevention Code.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Perfect. Guess it moves on to the council now.
Thank you.
Yeah. Look at that, Carrie. No hard questions. So moving on to business item D, public hearing. The 2021 POMC Title 20 Housekeeping Amendments.
Okay, this is the same item that you see around this time every year. Every year we continually track the things that we find wrong in Title 20, errors, inconsistencies, omissions, outdated or contradictory references, and we gather them up into one ordinance every year that's known as the Housekeeping Ordinance for Title 20, and we bring them to you in City Council to do all these minor corrections at once, because we're sure you don't want to see 25 ordinances throughout the year making one little correction here and there. And none of these are, significant that we would feel would require discussion in a public hearing. They are all things that are basically scrivener's errors or other things that should basically be done like this, with one hearing to deal with all of them, and one minor correction process. So what we've done is we have provided the ordinance, which is in a clean format showing all of the changes. And then, as we usually do, there's an explanatory document that follows that breaks down each proposed change, why we're doing it, what was the problem, and what our proposed solution is. And then a red line, strike out, underline, so you can see exactly what we've changed, what the original language was, and what our proposed correction is. And I can go through each one of those if you'd like me to, or if there's just a few that you have questions about, I'm happy to just go through, each one that you would have questions about. That's up to you. Please let me know what your preference is. Would you like me to go through the complete document? I see Trish saying no.
Yeah, I'm fine with what I read.
I mean, if only to punish you for leaving us, but that would punish the rest of us too. So I personally don't feel like that is necessary.
Well, certainly if there are any members of the public who have questions about any of the items, I'm happy to, go into any of them in more detail.
So I'm going to open the public hearing if there's no more comment right now. So I'd like to open the public hearing for 2021 POMC Title 20 Housekeeping Amendments.
And once again, if anyone from the public wishes to testify, please use the raise hand button on the Zoom call, and we can unmute you so you can provide comment. Going twice. Last call. All right, I'm not seeing any hands.
Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing, 2021 POMC Title 20 Housekeeping Amendments.
And there is a suggested motion in the staff report.
I can do that. I move to recommend the City Council approve the 2021 Title 20 Housekeeping Ordinance.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Look at that. Passes. 3 for 3.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was 2 for 3 because we're
Two-
not done with.
2 for
the first
2.
one.
Yeah.
All right, so is there anything else for tonight's agenda? Are we done? Can we adjourn?
I think we can,
I would like to just say, if I could, it has really been wonderful to work with all of you. I don't think the community understands how much time and effort you all put into what you do here for the Planning Commission. It's unpaid. I wish, that state law didn't prevent you from getting a stipend or some other type of compensation. The mayor has looked into that, I know, and it's not possible, but I wish it were, because you do a great deal. You have full, busy lives. You're all professional people. You all have a lot to do, and yet you make time to do this for your community. And I really appreciate what you do and how closely you work with staff and how supportive you've been of staff. And I'm not trying to speak for other staff. I guess I'm speaking of me. So thank you very much. It's been almost 6 years, and it has been a great privilege to work with all of you. Thank you so much.
Well, we really appreciate you, Carrie, and we're going to miss you. So good luck, and just keep in touch somehow if you can.
Thank you. I will try to do that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Luck,
absolutely. Thank you very much, Carrie, for all you've done for us.
Luck on your next adventure, Carrie.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Good luck, Carrie. It's been great working with and for you.
Thanks, Mark.
I would agree. Well put, Mark. Well put.
I know. I second.
all right, thank you, Carrie. And I did want to let the commissioners know that starting with next month's meeting, your emails will be coming from a combination of Josie and Jim and myself. We are still ironing out the details of how you will get your packets and everything. So there may be a few hiccups, but we're going to try to keep it as seamless as possible for you. So just keep an eye out for correspondence from all three of us until we find a replacement for the irreplaceable.
Well, I want to take this time to thank the public for, again, stopping by and sharing your ideas and your comments with us. We do appreciate it. We wish that more people would come more often because, again, we are representing you, the community, and it's really nice to know what you're thinking and what you like and what you would like to see for the future of Port Orchard. So thank you so much. Thank you to the planning commissioners for coming tonight. It was great seeing all of you. And good luck to you, Mark. Yeah, that's all I got to say. So if there's nothing else, I'd like to adjourn the meeting for tonight. All right, see you guys. Take care.
Care.